It's Friday night, actually it's Saturday morning, and Big Clive has been drinking carbonated white wine, and that always ends badly in terms of projects. So let's do a project, and this one is called Dr. Clive's Disko-piss urine colorizer. And this came about, yes it is weird, this came about because my brother lives in the middle of nowhere. He lives in this sort of countryside with my mum, and I was spending some time over there, and it just so happened that his septic tank had suddenly decided it had had enough and it needed dosed with chemicals and biological agents to reactivate it. And we had to restrict the amount we used the toilet. So being in the middle of nowhere and being pitch black, we went out in the garden and urinated in the garden at night. It's just, you know, it was strangely liberating actually. And I put on a head torch to go out one night to urinate in the garden, and we're talking a big random garden in the middle of nowhere. And I noticed that when you wear a head torch, it makes your urine light up like diamonds, like scattering diamonds everywhere. It's great. I mean, okay, slightly yellow diamonds that smell like piss, but diamonds nonetheless. And the science behind this is just like cat's eyes, really. So if you have a droplet of liquid, or in the case of cat's eyes, or the reflective tape that you have in your workwear, it's actually lots of glass balls, lots of glass beads. And when light enters, for some odd reason, it reflects off the back, probably because of the refractive index. So the front acts as a lens, the back acts as a sort of mirror because of the difference in the refractive index between the glass and the background, or the liquid, and it fires the light straight back. And that's why cat's eyes light up. So I thought, that's interesting, I wonder if we can do something with this. And it made me think of these hideous LED torches that they're based in the Petzl Tika, but they obviously used a chip out of one of these bike lights just because it had a button for on-off and it drove lots of LEDs, and it had the same sort of strip of LEDs. But it also means that they do these patterns that aren't terribly helpful when you're driving along the road. It's, you know, or should I say, not when you're using it as a head torch, well, they're not terribly helpful when you're driving along the road either, but when you use it as a head torch, really, you just want off, on, and at most a different intensity, you know, maybe a lower intensity to save batteries. But these ones do the little chasing effects, and I thought, you know what? If I replace these LEDs with coloured LEDs, that's not showing up at all on the camera, is it? Oh, there we go. It's showing it's red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. Then, technically speaking, I should be able to use that to shatter my piss into a cascade of dazzling semi-precious gemstones. You know, rubies, emeralds, sapphires, amethyst, topaz, all those and more in your urine. And this isn't just for outdoors use. You could actually do this in the house. This is particularly appropriate where you're sharing accommodation and they have those horrible toilet fans that, you know, you get up in the middle of the night and you don't want to turn the light in the bathroom on because the fan comes on and it wakes everybody up. So they have application for that as well. Or you could just build one for the hell of it. So here's the science. And this is where I stretch YouTube's boundaries by drawing a little character. So he's having a piss. There he is. And he's got the Dr. Clive's fabulous urine colorizer, which is beaming light, colouring light out, and he's got this little willy and he's like sprinkling, and that's going to produce all the sparkling coloured light. So there we are, that's the science behind it. Yes indeed. So let's make this and see what we can do here. So this is a cheap generic LED light. This project has a lot of applications, but you know, this is the wine-induced application. So this is a Kingavin. I'm going to regret this. I'm going to say, am I going to really put this video up? And yes, I am. Kingavin, which is a generic UK brand, and it's just a generic cheap head torch, the magnet in the back and the strange strap that it goes in upside down. So let's open this up and see how easy it is to change these LEDs. I'm pretty sure I've done this before. I think I've changed them. I've changed them to warm white. Oh, the first hurdle is get the battery cover off. There we go. And the way these usually come out is with brute force. They usually just sort of, usually you can just hike it in the bottom, just like the original Petzl Tika, and putting them in again is usually a complete nightmare. Particularly because of that button. I'm going to have to remember that, because it's quite tricky putting them back in again. Oh, have they glued this on? No, they've not. So here we have the little circuit board inside with the little chip, and it's got the button mounted on the edge, so we're going to actually desolder all these LEDs. I wonder if I should actually just remove... yeah, you know what, I'm going to remove these wires just to make it easier. It's a very non-cluttered circuit board. So red's the big pad. I'm going to forget that. I'm going to completely ruin the project. So I'm going to actually put a wee dot. I'm going to put a dot here just to remind me that's the negative. Someone asked me why I don't sniff my Sharpie when I open it. Sharpie. That's because I tend to snip it off camera. Rightio, let's see about getting these LEDs desoldered. Now, it's quite a, densely packed circuit board. So I'm going to actually, first I'm going to note the polarity. Negative is being switched, positive is fairly common. That's a very densely packed circuit board. So negative is, if it's not marked, it's on the bottom of all of them. Okay, rightio. So I'm going to use my usual technique of the silicon tube over and then heating both the joints simultaneously. And the LED usually just pops out. I may have to reflow the solder a bit. Oh, definitely reflow the solder in the case of this one, because that's not coming out at all. That's a tight fit. They've really... Oh, it's a double-sided PCB, that's why. And one of the leads has just come off the LED. Excellente. That's going to make things easier. Maybe I should actually reflow these with a touch of fresh solder. It always helps. Ooh, it gets very busy in here. I do hope this works. Yeah, they really, they've cut it fine on this circuit board. This is just a wee bit over densely packed. Not to worry. I changed to a different soldering iron, but I'm beginning to wish I hadn't now. I'm beginning to wish I'd just get the big one that I had before. I may have to pause momentarily if this gets too long-winded. Particularly given now I see that it's the double-sided board. That's annoying, actually. I'd rather have had a single-sided board. It just makes things so much easier. Mainly because getting the solder out the holes in the double-sided board is just a nightmare usually. I do have a power-assisted desoldering tool, but I just prefer to do it with basic tools. So that you guys can do the same sort of stuff just with basic tools without having to get any fancy equipment. No equipment snobbery on this channel. Yeah, that is just not coming out easily. Oh God, is that... No, it's not. It has come out completely. I thought another LED lead had parted company. And the direction of these LEDs is not marked. It's a bit annoying. Not to worry. Someone was asking about the cut in the knuckle. It's actually the skin cracks. Particularly when I go to the gym, I really lay into the punch bag. And that just, when that happens, the knuckle just never heals up properly. I should really lay off that. Right, let's get the long nose pliers and tweak that last lead out and then try and clear the solder out of these. I have a horrible feeling I may have to pause while I do this just so I don't bore you to death trying to get solder out of holes. Yeah, I think I may just pause momentarily until I clear all these holes out. Using every technique available, desoldering wick and desoldering pumps and everything. So I'll be back shortly. I shall just go and do that right now. Okay, that was easier than expected, though I will have to admit I had to change the soldering iron bit because the one I'd put in was just a little bit too small for the thermal mass for the desoldering wick. So it is a much smaller one than I'd normally use, so I stepped that up. And once I'd done that, the desoldering wick took the solder out easily because the holes in these are absolutely enormous. They're huge. So now I have to choose which colours I'm going to put in, noting that at each extreme end, the LEDs only light once in each sweep backwards and forwards, but the other one's light twice. I'm going to put green and blue at the ends because they're the more ferocious colours. So it's the negative that's going down that way. And I shall solder these LEDs in right now. This is a very small circuit board, so it's going to be very footery. I shall get the first lead soldered, and then just remelt that to square it up, because it's not quite 100% perfectly square. 'Tis now. And then melt the other one, solder the other lead. So that's the first LED in. Green for the other end, I think. So noting the polarity. The negative, which is the short lead, goes to the common side, the side with the switch actually. So I shall just, again, I'll just tack that LED in. And then square it up. A lot of people comment about the fact that I solder holding the circuit board and the component and the solder with different fingers. I've never even really noticed I did that. It's just something that's evolved over time. Because I've been soldering for a long time. And certainly when you're out servicing stuff in the field, so to speak, it just makes sense to actually do that. So next comes red, orange, and yellow. I think I'll just put them in the order they just come out. Square that LED up, solder the other lead. It's all going together nicely. Yeah, looks good. Try not to cut the switch off when I'm trimming these leads. I actually got a splash of solder in the back of the switch. I'll just pop that off. There we go. Next comes a short lead. I notice a lot of the LEDs coming from China have these short leads, which I suppose it makes sense in the saving of metal versus the long leads. But having said that, when it comes to things like the LED Fairlight projects, that's actually a wee bit annoying. I don't actually care much for the short leads. I'd rather have the long ones and have the option, but they just... oops, I better put that... Oh no, look at the... that's interesting. Yeah... That's the opposite polarity. The little anvil inside is the opposite side. Okay. They sometimes do that for the gallium arsenide type technologies just because certain brighter technologies have the cathode and the anode swapped just for achieving the maximum light output, I guess. And if you don't realise that, some of the LEDs from China come with the packages, the reverse polarity. They just seem to put it through the standard LED making machine, and it results in LEDs with the wrong polarity on them. And that's just annoying when that happens, particularly when you built an entire circuit board with covered in LEDs. That's just what happens, unfortunately. That might again be because a lot of the LEDs on eBay might be reject LEDs. And here's the last LED. I have to say, we were discussing in one of the theatre forums online LED head torches, and the conclusion was that, you know, in a way, these little cheap head torches, the dollar store head torches, are actually not that bad. You don't mind losing them when you inevitably leave a torch behind, a flashlight. And they work very well, just for general illumination of what you're working on. They obviously won't light your path in the middle of nowhere, but well, they will to a degree if it's very dark. But the little tiny LED head torches are pretty good. Okay, that's the last LED soldered in. Righty-ho, let's reattach these leads. So I'm going to flow some fresh solder onto the pads and onto the leads themselves, because it always helps. When you flow fresh solder on it, the older solder tends to sort of get a bit crusty if the flux has gone out of it. The flux is what helps it flow onto the metal. So retinning it just makes a big difference. So negative in this one, because I marked it with a black dot, and positive on the bigger pad, which is common to all the LEDs, which means the chip's switching them down to negative, which again is pretty common. And then I just shove it back into this reflector. I think that reflector's the right way up. Is this going to clip in? I think this is the right way up. I'm not 100% sure if it's the right way up, actually. I'll soon find out when it doesn't fit. Oh, that's quite footry. Yeah, does that look about right? I think that's right. Or does that go up the other way? I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, I think that might be it. Yes, that is it. Okay. Now, I've already put a bit of tape over this button because I've been caught out in the past with that button just really being quite awkward to get back into position. So let's... I should test this actually before I put it in, but I'm not going to do that. Well, that went in far too easily. And the button's working, so the tape runs off. Let's stick some batteries in it and see if the Disko-piss urine colorizer is active. This is where it doesn't work. Sometimes that happens. Little obstacles that have to be... Oh, it looks like it's working perfectly well here. It looks like it's producing a... Yeah, that's working fine. That means I now have to test it. I'm not sure I really want to actually make a video of this, but yeah, okay, I'll be back shortly. Okay, yes, that was kind of weird. I'm not sure I want to put that on YouTube, although I have a sneaky feeling I may end up just doing so. Just because, well, you know, because. So I also tried some experiments outside. I have to say, when you point it into a porcelain bowl, it tends to swamp out. You don't get a good contrast. But if you do it outside, and I ended up, well, I had to end up with a little tray of water and just gently spill it out. Interestingly, I noticed that although you get a good effect when it's chasing backwards and forwards, even when it's just lit static with the different coloured LEDs, that also breaks the water droplets into colours. They must just reflect selectively in different directions and pick up different LEDs, which is interesting enough. But yes, it's an interesting effect. It's not a terribly productive effect, but then again, do all projects have to be productive? So yes, go forth and piss like unicorns.